Morning light streamed through the royal palace windows as the prince stood before the throne, the delicate glass slipper resting in his hands. It shimmered softly, catching the sunlight like a tiny piece of the moon. The king and queen sat nearby, watching their son with a mix of pride and concern. "My son," said the king gently, "you've searched for happiness for so long. Are you sure this is how you'll find it?" The prince looked down at the slipper, then back up at his father. "I know it sounds foolish," he said quietly, "but when I danced with her, I felt as if the whole world disappeared. She wasn't like anyone else. I have to find her." The queen smiled kindly. "Then go, my dear boy," she said. "Follow your heart." Cinderella looked up, her eyes shining with tears. "Your Highness," she said softly, "I never meant to deceive you. I only wanted to see the palace. Just once." The prince smiled and took her hand. "You've given me more than that," he said. "You've shown me what kindness and courage truly mean." At that moment, a gentle light filled the room, the same warm glow that had once appeared in the garden. Cinderella turned and saw her fairy godmother standing by the door, smiling. "Well done, my dear," she said softly. "You've kept faith, even in the darkest moments. And now, your heart has led you home." With a final twinkle of her wand, the ashes on Cinderella's dress vanished, and she stood once again in her shimmering blue gown. The prince took a step closer. "Will you come with me?" he asked. "Will you be my princess?" Cinderella smiled through her tears. "With all my heart." The prince offered her his arm, and together they walked to the carriage waiting outside. As they drove away toward the palace, the townspeople cheered, for news of the magical slipper had spread quickly. Birds flew overhead, singing, and even the wind seemed to carry a song of joy. Back in the house, the stepmother and her daughter stood frozen, unable to believe what had just happened. But it can't be," Drizella stammered. "She was just a servant." Anastasia whispered. "Not anymore," said the stepmother, her voice hollow, for deep down, even she knew kindness had triumphed. And so, the prince set out across the kingdom. He rode from village to village, from cottages to manors, carrying the glass slipper with him. Everywhere he went, young women lined up eagerly, hoping the shoe might fit. But no matter how many tried, the slipper was always too small or too large. The prince grew tired, but his hope never faded. "She's out there," he said to his attendants. "I can feel it." Meanwhile, at the old house on the edge of the forest, Cinderella swept the floors, her mind still drifting back to that magical night. Every time she closed her eyes, she could see the prince's smile, hear the music, and feel the warmth of his hand in hers. It felt so real. She whispered to her mouse friends, "But it was only one night. He'll never find me." Jack shook his head and squeaked determinedly. Gus puffed up his tiny chest and pointed toward the window. Cinderella laughed softly. "You two really believe he'll come here?" They both nodded. "Oh, you're such dreamers," she said lovingly, though her eyes shimmered with a spark of hope. At that very moment, far down the road, the sound of horses' hooves echoed through the air. A royal carriage was approaching. Inside sat the prince, still holding the glass slipper, his heart beating faster with each passing mile. When the carriage stopped in front of the stepmother's house, the royal herald stepped out and called, "By order of His Royal Highness, Prince Charming, every maiden in this household shall try on the slipper. The prince himself will see to it." Anastasia nearly dropped her teacup. "He's here," she squealed. "Oh, mother, what should I wear?" "Something that hides your clumsy feet," Drizella muttered. "Girls," snapped the stepmother, "compose yourselves. This is our chance. Remember your manners and your smiles." Then she turned sharply toward the kitchen. "Cinderella, stay out of sight. You'll only embarrass us." Cinderella paused, broom in hand. "But stepmother, Mayn't I? Silence. The woman hissed. Do as you're told. Moments later, the prince entered the house, his presence filling the small room with quiet grace. Anastasia and Drizella curtsied dramatically, nearly tripping over each other. Your Highness, they chorused. The prince smiled politely. Good day, ladies. I've come to see if either of you might be the one I danced with at the royal ball. The stepmother beamed proudly. But of course, Your Highness, my daughters are the finest young ladies in the kingdom. I'm sure the slipper will fit one of them perfectly. The royal servant knelt and presented the slipper. Anastasia was first. She squeezed and pulled, her face turning red. Almost. Just a bit tight, she insisted. But no matter how hard she tried, the shoe wouldn't go past her toes. Drizella pushed her sister aside. Let me try, she said. Sitting down quickly, she forced her foot into the slipper, wiggling and twisting. But it was no use. The slipper simply wouldn't fit. The prince sighed softly, disappointment clouding his eyes. Is there no one else in this house? He asked. The stepmother's smile faltered for a moment, then returned. No, Your Highness, she said smoothly. No one else of importance. But before the prince could turn to leave, a soft voice spoke from the doorway. Your Highness, said Cinderella, her hands clasped together. May I try it on? The room went still. The stepmother's eyes flashed with panic. Cinderella, she snapped. Stay where you are. You have no business here. The prince turned to look at her, his breath catching in his throat. There was something familiar in her face, the gentleness in her eyes, the quiet strength in her posture. Who is she? He asked softly. No one, Your Highness, said the stepmother quickly. A servant girl. Nothing more. But the prince wasn't listening. Bring the slipper, he said firmly. The servant stepped forward, carrying the velvet cushion. The stepmother moved to block Cinderella's path. Your Highness, really? This is highly irregular. The prince looked at her calmly. I give the orders here. Madam. Slowly, Cinderella stepped forward and sat down. Her heart pounded in her chest. The servant knelt before her and held out the slipper. Cinderella took a deep breath and gently slid her foot inside. It fit perfectly, as though it had been made just for her. A hush fell over the room. Anastasia gasped. Drizella's jaw dropped. The stepmother's face turned pale. The prince's eyes filled with wonder. It's you, he whispered. It's really you? When Cinderella returned to the palace, the king and queen welcomed her with open arms. My dear, said the queen, embracing her, we are so happy to finally meet you. And to have a daughter like you, said the king, smiling broadly. The wedding was held soon after, and the entire kingdom rejoiced. Bells rang from every tower, flowers bloomed across the fields, and the sky seemed to shine brighter than ever before. Cinderella walked down the grand hall in her gown of soft silver and blue, her glass slipper sparkling with every step. The prince waited for her at the altar, his eyes full of love. I told you I'd find you, he whispered. Cinderella smiled. And I told you to have courage and be kind. They exchanged vows under a canopy of roses, and when they kissed, the crowd cheered with joy. The fairy godmother watched from afar, her eyes glistening. Another dream come true, she said softly, before vanishing in a swirl of golden light. From that day forward, Cinderella ruled beside the prince with grace and compassion. She never forgot the lessons she had learned, that kindness is stronger than cruelty, that courage is born from hope, and that dreams can come true when you least expect them. She treated everyone in the kingdom with warmth, even her stepmother and stepsisters, who humbled themselves and asked for forgiveness. And Cinderella, with her gentle heart, forgave them. Everyone deserves a second chance, she said. Years passed, and the palace became a place of laughter and light. The birds still sang outside the windows, the mice still scurried about happily in the corners, and every evening, as the sun set over the hills, Cinderella would step onto her balcony, and look up at the stars. "Thank you," she would whisper to her fairy godmother, to her parents, and to the magic that had changed her life. And so, dear listener, Cinderella's story reminds us that no matter how dark life may seem, kindness will always find a way to shine. Dreams may take time, but they always come true for those who keep believing. If you enjoyed this magical ending, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Little Dreamland Tales, and click the bell to never miss another bedtime story filled with hope, love, and a little touch of magic. Sweet dreams, little dreamers, and always remember, believe in yourself, be kind to others, and let your heart guide you, just like Cinderella.